I'll watch the lobby.
All right. Welcome everybody to the next user group. Like I was just saying, this is going to be pretty laid back, so feel free to come off mute, chat, whatever. We're just going to kind of go through the book of news and talk about what kind of stood out to us when we were watching Build. I don't think Derek or I made it there in person this year, but if any of you guys did, let us know.
I watched some of the
Uh,
sessions. I didn't even get to catch that many sessions this year because of customer engagements, but I did go back and watch a few of them on topics I was interested in.
yeah, Scott Hanselman's Hansel Minutes also doubled as recording one of the sessions. So I picked up that just because I was kind of curious and thought it was really cool. They talked about Azure Foundry Local, which is one I think is pretty cool, where you can fine tune and kind of run your own models locally on your own machine. I assume that could extrapolate further because it's a CLI command of it could run on servers if we have bare metal servers somewhere. What was really cool is he talked about basically the podcast production he does, and how he's really lazy at posting links. As somebody who creates a podcast too, I totally, in the moment, you're like, oh, I promise I'll share you the link to that. He basically put a system prompt for the agent that listens, transcribes, does all that sort of jazz for him to do a big bold call out of like, hey, you promised these links in the episode. That way, when you come back, whether it's days, weeks, months later, you don't have to listen to the whole 45-minute, hour, 30-minute, whatever it is, but basically take the time to re-listen to the episode. He also has an editor, so there's even less reason to sit and re-listen to it all. They did some of that in the cloud, but then also did some of that with Azure Foundry Local, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much more the local stuff takes off now that you're starting to see more and more laptops with NPUs built in that gives you some of the local processing power to be able to do it. If we see much more of that starting to happen. So
Well, I have a hot take. Like NPUs are cool, but I think GPU nothing beats a good GPU still. And a lot of dev machines do have decent GPUs. Like, are we going to get to the point, especially now that Copilot's open sourced? I think GitHub Copilot open sourcing was an announcement and build as well. So you could theoretically go build your own GitHub Copilot. Will we see companies build and train their own Copilot agents for developers so that they don't have to pay for Copilot licenses? Maybe.
pretty tall task to train your own stuff. So
I mean, it is, but if you're real, I think of like, I don't know what the government cloud looks like in AI right now, or like a very regulated or locked down environment. It's not crazy to use AI Foundry Local and then the open source GitHub Copilot and say, hey, we've now built our own regulated internal Copilot. You could start with a pre-trained LLM, right? And then use, I don't know, Codex or something.
something like Olama or something. I've played a little bit with Olama locally in a Docker container. So
Yeah. I think the possibilities easier, right? Like there was just even more of a task of before it was open sourced that you can't even do that. So I think the barrier to entry is decreasing. Can you, well, and even theoretically, right? I know Gemini's included now as a Copilot preview, I believe, on some of the Copilot stuff, but pick any of your big AI LLMs, you could theoretically build a Copilot for that, even if it's not offered in Azure today, which, I mean, a lot of them are being onboarded right now. So, but yeah, the other thing that was talked about a lot was the Copilot improvements. So, Copilot Studio got a lot of love, and specifically agents. They were talking about everything was kind of train themed this year. I don't know if that was just a partnership or something, but even in one of the big keynotes, they talked about how, I don't know if it was quite a derailment, but any sort of issues on a train line, they worked to resolve that with different agents, and they used announced A to A, which is agent to agent communication. So you can have multiple agents to help triage an event, essentially. And that was built into Copilot Studio and a lot of the other copilots. And that way they could, if there's an issue, there's like government regulations and paperwork they have to start filling out. They have to get the right people in charge alerted. I think a lot of us could see use cases there of, production starts heating up or starts going down. Could you start getting logs and the relevant information gathered up for a triage team or a firefighter team to say, hey, even more proactively too, hey, we noticed this event happening previously and that brought down all of prod. Maybe we can start looping in tech leads or whatever at your current company.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw that. One of the things that really impressed me, if you saw one of the keynotes, is that where they were researching cooling liquids for PC. So where they're actually immersing full servers into a liquid for cooling purposes. And apparently, I can't remember, some of the current ones that are in use have issues. And so they were looking for new compounds to be able to use. They actually trained a model to be able to research components to use for cooling these servers, and got a list of components or compounds that were potential, candidates to use. And they actually took one of them, created it, and tested it, and it worked well. And they are looking at moving forward with it. So, a place where AI is being used to accelerate, new research. And I think you're going to see that same type of thing in medicine, cancer research, and everything else, where, it's weeding out, down to, maybe 1,000 compounds to be able to research further. So, taking, being able to accelerate research instead of having taken years to go through all these and find successful candidates. It's being done in weeks at this point. So
I did see that. They were saying, is that coupled with, or did they actually announce that they have a way to basically eliminate the water evaporation, like water loss in data centers? Is that the same announcement or something else where they basically discovered a new material?
I think it was the same announcement. So
yeah, yeah, that was really cool, because I know it was interesting because somebody was complaining, I think last year, about how much data usage or so much power and carbon footprint a lot of Microsoft's tech is having. And I mean, you just think of data centers in general, they use a lot of power. And I think Microsoft by 2025 is planning to be completely renewable. You can Google the exact things. And I think they're trying to be carbon neutral by 25 or 26. Somebody will have to look at that up. But then in my day-to-day work, somebody was talking about water usage. And then it was like, Microsoft's like, hey, we have something that might eliminate all water evaporation kind of loss. So I'm just waiting for somebody else to complain about something and then Microsoft to come right back with, hey,
they propose to be carbon negative by 2030. So
that's what it is. Okay.
And supposedly, even with the 30% growth in AI usage right now, they're still supposedly on track for that. So the other thing, I don't know, since we're on Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, have you played with Researcher at all?
I have not.
So Researcher is one of my favorite tools now, and I'll do a quick little demo. So I was looking for a chocolate chip protein cookie recipe, and you can search the internet, you can find all these things out there for making the ultimate chocolate chip protein cookie recipe. But I fed it to Microsoft Researcher, and so Researcher is supposed to be kind of our top reasoning capability to be able to think through this and analyze everything. And so here I gave it. Where's my prompt at? Come on, the mouse is create the ultimate chocolate chip protein cookie recipe for me. And so you can sit here and see it going through all its reasoning, gathering information, formulating, defining, gathering. And this is what it generated. It created not just a quick prompt, but it went through giving me all the background on the components and how they're used, and the pros and cons of them, and things you could do to make them better, and everything, binders, leavening. I mean, it just gave me a whole book here to be able to go through. And then at the end, it actually gave me a recipe with the amounts to be able to use for the ultimate protein cookie recipe. I mean, this thing's huge. That what it popped out, and I've used it for some other stuff. So I mean, this is the type of things that we're starting to put out. Analyst is, you can feed it like an Excel spreadsheet with huge amounts of data in it, and start being able to use natural language query to make sense of that data. So being able to actually have great productivity tools with AI at this point.
That's awesome. Is that in what tool is that?
That's Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that's a enterprise-based tool. So not available.
Is that a standalone app that you downloaded, or?
Yeah, so it's M365 is an app on my machines.
Okay. I usually go to copilot.microsoft.com to play with Copilot, and I don't know if we have deep research flagged yet. But
yeah, the thing would be to look at what other agents are there. So with M365, there's all agents. So I have a list of other agents like Idea Coach, Learning Coach, Career Coach, Prompt Coach, Writing Coach, Visual Creator, and then Analyst and Research. So I can select other agents to be able to use that are more specialized for me. So
nice. The other things they talked about too, kind of in the same agents sphere, Microsoft 365 Agent Toolkit for Visual Studio. So you can get outside of just doing, I don't know if you've done Copilot Studio development at all, Derek, but it's very low code or UI heavy, which is great if you're trying to just hit the ground running. It becomes a pain if there's a very specific use case or if you want something to function exactly the way you care about. So that is no longer going to be an issue, I don't think. 365 Copilot APIs are now a bunch of Gen AI ready APIs you can call and build with. And then there's an SDK they've also built. There's a concept of an agent store too that they've announced where they're going to be recommending agents for you that hopefully you can have internal listed, maybe external listed. Are we seeing maybe a new marketplace kind of be built out, kind of like the ChatGPT has their own marketplace where you can buy agents or potentially pay people to use their agents. AI Foundry also has a way now to bring your own models. So I'm in the middle of writing a blog post on this. You can basically bring your own API keys into Azure AI Foundry. So if there's, say, Gemini, for example, Google, I'm gonna make a guess and say Google is probably not going to run that LLM ever on Azure hardware. But if you really want to use it, you can bring your own API key and do it that way. Or maybe you just like ChatGPT's billing model better. You could bring your OpenAI API keys into Microsoft's AI Foundry and then have the protection of APEM and content filtering, all this other stuff you could turn on, but call an external model. That way you can still have a certain level of control or still be in your Azure tenant. I'm going to assume that some of the data protection things go away because Microsoft obviously doesn't control what happens to your data outside it when it leaves their walls. It just is acting as a proxy at that point. But if you really have a particular model that you just really want to use and Microsoft for some reason won't bring it onto their system, you can do that today, which is pretty cool. Like I said, then you can use Gemini in Azure.
And if people haven't guessed yet, Microsoft's an AI company. I mean, if you look at everything across that build and this year, and it was hard to find an announcement that didn't have AI tie-in. So, and I think some of the things that I'm most excited about is agent to agent and model context protocol. So I think those have some real capabilities on being able to extend and you can create your specialized agents and have communications among your agents to pull in that data or allow your agent to reach out through that model context protocol, which is one of the things I'm looking at right now for one of my systems, using MCP to do natural language query on a database to pull back data then. So
yeah, I think what's the difference between an MCP and an agent? Like what is an agent, Derek, and what does MCP allow us to do with those?
So
an agent,
I mean, an agent is doing work on your behalf. So, you're requesting an agent to giving a prompt to actually go out and do something. And model context protocol is a way for that agent to actually accomplish it. So you don't have to basically hard code or access a known API. MCP gives you a known protocol to talk to different endpoints at that point. So you can query the endpoint on saying, what do you do? What can you provide me? And then base your prompts to that endpoint based on what it can do. So some of the biggest things for me is being able to have MCP for maybe like a Postgres database or an Azure SQL database, and be able to do natural language query against those databases without having to know specifics about them, or what the data actually is. The model context protocol handles that for me.
So it's kind of fair to say that the model context protocol is kind of the glue that could potentially help glue together some deterministic logic, different agents, and all that to do bigger tasks.
Yeah, it's a way to basically take your APIs that you currently have and make them more accessible to your agents to actually operate on. Even to the point of API management services. So if anybody knows me, APIM is one of my favorite Azure services for a long time now. But APIM you'll actually be able to publish your MCP through APIM. So being able to put all the safeguards APIM offers. So that's something that will eventually be coming out. I think it's in preview on the premium SKU right now, but you'll probably see that adopted across a lot of the different SKUs on APIM. So
that's good, because I just saw a blog post not that long ago about somebody's MCP server being hijacked, and APIM is a good protection security wise from helping with that.
And you put controls in it, throttling and access and additional security for authentication and stuff. So APIM has a lot of great uses.
Another thing I'm really excited about that I've applied for the preview a few times, but I don't know if it's GA now, or the computer use tool, so that you can basically have it prompt an LLM to do things on your behalf on your desktop. I had a long running tasks where we just had to basically run a app in batches of like 500, and it took like 10-15 minutes, and could fail. So I wanted to use actually computer use to basically just hit the execute button on my code runner, and I haven't been approved or been able to play with it yet, but that's something I'm really excited for. Of just like, can I automate some mundane tasks that I do every day? Operational database for agents is also a thing powered by Dataverse. So we can actually build some stuff in Dataverse for databases for our agents if we want to, and then search in Dataverse. So I'm assuming this is kind of like the continuation of, SQL Server has an indexable, is able to be indexed and prompted against. Cosmos looks like Dataverse is now as well, and it also can help be the glue to link things like Zendesk, ServiceNow, SAP, Databricks, and more to help in, basically wherever your data is, giving AI the ability to access it. Copilot Wave 2 was announced. They're going to be using better image generation there if you're using copilot.microsoft.com. They now have notebooks, which I think are similar to Gemini's canvases. So you can basically...
Yeah, it's close. I've been playing with Google's notebook capabilities, and they're pretty impressive. But hopefully, we start getting there on kind of matching what they can do at this point.
And you talked about the researcher and analysis agent that you're playing with that is rolling out to people in the Frontier program. So Derek, you probably have early access or are in the Frontier program just because you work at Microsoft. But if you want to play with that as well, join the Frontier program at your work. Some other stuff that I don't know if I really care about. Copilot Pages was something I saw that was really crazy, where you can turn PDFs and Word documents into entire websites. Have you seen that, Derek?
I've heard a little bit about it. I haven't followed it too much, so it's out of the Azure realm, so I don't get real close to it. So
Yeah. So the reason I saw it is somebody who was a Power Apps MVP actually was posting about it on LinkedIn. And it feels like, oh, what's the tool called? They have a tool that did this something similar a while ago, and it just feels like the newest version of that. I'm gonna blank on the name off the top of my head, but not SharePoint, but they had a similar tool that could do something where it could spin up like raw brochureware kind of websites for you. But yeah, I think this is really cool. If you really want somebody to like interact with your Word document, I'm wondering if
yeah,
we could get some cooler presentations out of this.
you're not talking Power Pages, are you?
Maybe?
So
Is that what
Power
it's called?
Pages was kind of creating websites in that Power environment, kind of drag and drop and stuff.
Yeah, I think
So
that
it'd be
might
the
have been
Power
it.
Pages stuff. So
But yeah, you can do this and they can create pages from a mobile phone, Word documents, PowerPoints, all that. It might be a fun way. I'm even thinking like at the end of a conference when people are like, hey, can I have your PowerPoint? And you're like, hey, I created a website for you to go browse to. Here you go. Instead of trying to send a PDF or something across the wire. Um, some team stuff. GitHub Apps for Teams has new features. Nothing too crazy there.
I think another thing you're seeing a lot of is on the database side, especially Microsoft Fabric. You're seeing a lot of integration with other databases. So we announced SQL Server a while ago, but we announced Cosmos DB integration also for the Fabric stuff, and that's really trying to consolidate data silos to provide better data access for creating agents. So I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things organizations have issues with is siloed data, data cleanliness type stuff. So, being able to use Fabric with one lake and stuff to create that cohesive data store, and then being able to layer your agents over to access quality data then. Very important.
Right. And a lot of those connectors and migration tools are great because then you can recommend people of they don't necessarily have to start with Fabric. If they're going to start like focusing more on data, they can then migrate to Fabric once they've matured enough or proven out value. I think those are all great things that I've seen. So like I'll usually tell people like unless you have a very compelling use case to use Fabric, maybe start with what you got today and you can always migrate your data to Fabric later. Without really much downtime or any of that because you can just bring those sources in. Um, AI Foundry got a lot of revamp and relove. I know Speech Studio is now, I don't know if this was announced, but it was moved to AI Foundry. So a lot of that stuff is now encompassed in there. Grok is now on AI Foundry. So if you want to play with Twitter's AI bot, you can do that.
And yeah, it's amazing. AI Foundry, I think it's like over 11,000 models now available on AI Foundry.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Like you just get so lost. We my client I'm at, we've basically just banned anything that's not a GPT model just because people get lost even just figuring out which GPT model they should use. When you start bringing in all the Hugging Face and all the other stuff out there, it's just wild.
No, but it definitely gives you options on, for capabilities and price and, even, so we'll get to GitHub Copilot chat in a little bit, but, being able to see the differences in models on GitHub Copilot chat is something to think about too. So.
Yeah, and even just the use case it crossed, we were using 4.0 mini and it was okay. Whereas like 4.1, GPT 4.1 mini was designed more to follow instructions better. Like it was fine tuned to be better at following instructions. And just the improvement I've seen in some of our generative AI, uh, just things we've been doing is kind of crazy because it's like, oh, hey, I now actually listen to the system prompt you give me instead of like flipping a coin and deciding like a temperamental toddler or something. Do I care about this or not? That's pretty cool. But yeah, the more models you have, the more you can play with, the more you can try to find. And there's probably one off the shelf that has your specialized task already pre-trained and ready to roll. There's a lot of stuff in Foundry. The cancer care thing you talked about, Derek, there is a specific call out there. Cancer care management with multi-agent orchestration. They did a demo on that. They're trying to make AI Foundry more observable too, which is interesting when it comes to metrics like performance quality and content safety. I feel like observability is one of those things that it kind of struggled with, or you had to build out a lot of that on your own. If you wanted to know like your token consumption, you either had to wait 24 hours or build out something that would track the responses of here's the input tokens, here's the output tokens. There's better insights being built out there, which I think is great. Production monitoring is another place they're focusing on, which is good. Agent Factory. There's a RAG engine being built now in AI search, which is in preview, so you don't even need some of this other stuff. You can start building agentic AI solutions with just AI search. I'm seeing this kind of across the board too with chat with your data. Microsoft and people are just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They with the SharePoint agent getting better and your SharePoint search getting better, like RAG is great and it's super cool. I think the barrier to get a chat with your data solution is like exponentially dropping to the point that you're now going to have a chat with your documents like agent. And I think that's why people are pushing MCP and A2A so hard is a lot of these tools off the shelf are going to be so easy to just chat with your data that I don't know, in a month or two that every tool is just going to have that built in. It's going to be part of the subscription you pay for. This is speculation on my part, but I think Copilot and just like SharePoint agents and all that are going to get so good that you're not going to build your own.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's where agent to agent and MCP will help out. So you won't have to build custom stuff. You'll build your endpoints or take your endpoints and publish them out of the MCP. The fact that Azure Functions will support MCP, you'll be able to take those endpoints and just make them accessible by those agents, and those agents you won't have to design custom agents anymore. You can do something like Copilot Studio and create an agent that then accesses multiple of your internal MCPs endpoints to hit that. So definitely will be a big boom.
Yeah, and I think it'll be like, hey, here's the Copilot, or here is the API that is now pointed to this bucket of data, and then you can decide, like you would do with any API, right? How do I expose that internally or externally? All that. I don't see a future far away that's going to be super easy, and everybody can have internal and external ones. There'll be, certain level of governance that will hopefully come along with that too, so that you're not alone figuring that out.
Dude, drink some coffee.
Yeah, dude, I'm running on 1 cup today.
Keep going. I mean, I think even take a look at like VS Code for the developer side. VS Code, being able to register MCP servers and access those MCP servers and stuff through Copilot Chat and stuff. So definitely extending capabilities and enhancing capabilities through those services. So.
Yeah, and that's super cool. There's that option of the different tools that you can even do web search or your own personal MCPs or rolling out MCPs across your organization. That's a super cool developer productivity increase because then you can use Open API. You can then turn that to a JSON definition or change it to a C# implementation of all of those endpoints. So they have an auto code generation that can do that. And then you can just point that straight into your MCP and ask Copilot, like, hey, can you make that connection for me? I've done that at a client project where it's like I took basically the Swagger spec out, generated a C# interface for it, and then pointed an MCP server at it and just said, like, hey, can you go fetch widget A? And it can go out and do that. And it already knows how my company authenticates. It already knows the endpoint it needs to go to. It knows the JSON parameters it needs to go to, and then it can even parse out the output back to me because that's also defined in the Swagger spec. That was super cool. Something you should definitely play with if you haven't tried before, because it can then be that mediator between all of your code and a developer.
We need to have a little session on all these little tricks that
Yeah.
you can use with co-pilots and stuff to help out your development side. So
Yeah, I think that could be a really cool one just to talk on MCP, and then how you can use like Swagger specs to just basically automatically build out your company specific agent orchestrator. Because I don't know about you, Derek, but there's sometimes companies you get thrown into and they have like a labyrinth of APIs. You're like, I need this data, but I don't know where to get it from. Copilot's really great at searching a bunch of junk if you give it the junk to search. So if you build an MCP server, you could ask it, Copilot, like, hey, I want this data. Where do I get it? What endpoint should I be calling? Who has this data? And you could just ask it. It could go out and fetch it, or even make the call and get you the data that you need, depending on what you're trying to do, right? Like if you just truly just need the data, you don't care about where it comes from, cool, it can go fetch it for you. If you do care about where it came from, hey, now you have the team you're looking at, you probably have the Swagger spec, you know exactly which endpoint to do. So you can say, hey, I want X data and here's Y endpoint. What team manages that? And you can then have more targeted conversations instead of just screaming into the void, potentially at a company with hundreds of APIs with, sometimes varying degrees of documentation, all that sort of fun stuff. The list I'm on has Foundry Local. We talked about that. Pretty excited to see how that works locally. I've played with it a little bit. My my personal Mac is a 2015 MacBook. So whenever I try to run anything on it, it just screams. And LLMs are not pretty. So I've been stuck with a lot of the Phi, like micro mini models. But yeah. Digital twins are now in Fabric. So if you want a digital twin, you can do that. GitHub Copilot can work with PostgreSQL. Azure Cosmos now has a global secondary index if you want disaster recovery and digital twins there. Works with Foundry, PostgreSQL extension for VS Code. You talked about database. I'm in that part of the build. The Power Apps Fusion Agent integration, plan, ship, and build. One thing that is interesting is I think Microsoft is now starting to come out. You could argue maybe a little bit late, but the SDLC processes we should be approaching with agents. So like how do you build, manage, and retire agents? So the plan, ship, and build AI agent native business portals with Microsoft Power Pages. So like how do you start thinking of building an agent? How do we ship it? What's the difference between a POC and productionized stuff? And then I assume we're going to eventually get to the point with how do I kill my agent when we need to replace it or continue to build on it. But some of that literature is starting to flow out now as more and more people are using it. I think we've gone through the trough of disillusionment where people are like AI, using AI for AI's sake. And I think there are business cases of people starting to show here's real use cases where we're getting ROI on using agents. It's not just burning money for the sake of money. The Phi model, small language model to allow developers to enhance web apps. It's kind of cool. PDF translation with just a few clicks. I've been building out actually a custom translator with a client of where we use their own glossary. So it's kind of cool that, hey, we can just translate a PDF and you can use it now. Or soon. This is next month. So it's probably now-ish. You can summarize stuff in Edge. I don't know if you've worked with the transcription or summarization agents in Teams. Those are great. So it's going to be really cool to see Edge for Business, how that could work. I don't know about you, Derek, but if you're ever reading AI literature, sometimes my eyes glaze over Or somebody might be like, this is groundbreaking, and then they list like a massive web page and be like, all right, can you dumb it down for me and like give me 3 bullet points? Because I don't want to read all of this to be. I want to filter to see, do I even care about what this is going to be about? Um, block inappropriate sites at no cost for Edge for Business. So there's some AI going on there for web content filtering for business. Purview is getting some love as well. I think that makes sense. Purview is Microsoft's data governance security tool of choice. As data and AI keep expanding, they're going to keep giving that some love, I think, for data security and compliance controls, just to make sure that you have some observability into what people are giving out there to AI agents and all that sort of fun stuff. They have a new Microsoft Purview Data Security Posture Management for AI, DSPM, which I think is just a generic thing of how you should think about that, different things you should work through. They have risk management tools, and then there's an audit for AI tools as well. So they're building that out. Microsoft for Defender is also going to get some security insights into Azure AI Foundry. And basically, there's just a bunch of linking to AI Foundry. MCP is also being, or I should say, Entra and identity management is starting to get built into MCP. So MCP was actually built by, I'm going to blank on the name of the company. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Derek. MCP, the people who make Claude, I forget.
Yeah, Anthropic.
Thank you. Yeah, they were the ones who actually built out MCP, the protocol, and a bunch of people adopted it, kind of like OpenAI designed the OpenAI protocol. So Microsoft is building some identity capabilities built into there so that you can more easily do identity and authorization specifications. So it's not all or nothing at all, I should say. You can then start protecting your MCP servers in the same way you do protect a similar web app. So you can do identity and authorization specifications. So maybe what Derek, one, it's not open to the whole web, but then two, I can also say, Derek, you can have access to this part of it, the MCP server. Maybe I have access to this part, and I can start doing some role specific stuff. That way, not everybody and their mom can just DDoS my MCP server or start pulling out proprietary information, which is a lot easier now that AI can then connect to an MCP server and make hard to find things really easy to find.
Of course, if you need that today, just put an API management services in front of it and it'll provide some of that protection.
That too, yeah. But your MCP server is still going to be open unless you lock it down.
Depends on where you host it at. I mean, if you host it in Azure in a VNet on like an app service or function, then it's walled off from the internet and you're providing things into it. Or the other thing you can do from an app service is you allow only the IP from APIM to be able to access it. Shut off all IPs except your APIM outbound IPs to be able to access it, and then it walls it off. So.
Gotcha. So you'd basically private network it so it could only come through the APIM through.
Yeah. For the most part, you're not actually putting in the private network, but you're basically shutting off all IP access except for those that belong to your APIM instance. So.
Gotcha. So you're putting a firewall kind of filtering in front of it ish.
Yeah, handmade.
Okay.
So there's ways around it. So.
NL Web is a open source HTML for agentic web project that you can use that uses MCP. So I think what that's trying to do is trying to bring conversational interfaces directly to the web. It's an open source project. My mind, what the big picture of this project is, and I can probably look at the repo and see if they, from what I saw, they're trying to basically say, I think Satya said something to the effect of, at one point, not SaaS is dead, but something like that. And like the MCP is going to be the new HTTP. So like the new way we interact with services online. I think this project's goal is to help empower people to get their APIs and products in a state that these AI tools like you look at Perplexity, Copilot that they can interact with and maybe fetch data on your behalf that you want your users to do without possibly even coming to their website. So I think that's the goal of this project.
I think the bigger goal is to kill search engines as we know it today. If you have it in a web interface on your website, the way search engines work is crawling a site and trying to understand and put your data in context. You no longer have to do that. You'd have a search agent. The agent would reach out to sites and say, "Hey, can you provide me this data?" type of thing. So,
yeah, I think you're not wrong. I mean, you're even seeing it with Google. They're adding extra stuff. There's a whole AI tab now in Google, or at least maybe I have a Google Pro account because I signed up for Gemini stuff just to play with it. There's a whole AI tab now when you go and ask it to do something, and then they have the Gemini auto-generated junk that sometimes you're like, I just want to get to the website. But I think
I had colleagues that have said that they have not used a search engine in weeks because they just go into Copilot and search for everything. So Copilot's becoming your search interface. It's handling all the search for you and pulling back the data and giving it to you. So it's putting your trust in it. And it's not hallucinating and pulling back wrong. But if you start moving to an NL web and continue to use Copilot as your interface, it's handling all the communications and interactions with the websites to pull the relevant data, understand it, and feed it back to you. So.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it at the core, what is the search engine doing? Like, why do people optimize for SEO? They optimize because they want to sell their product or get their information out there. So as more and more people move further and further away from traditional search engines, you're going to want to make your website more searchable, your products more buyable, because there's going to be money tied to that. Whether you're using Google, Perplexity, Copilot, I want you to find, if I'm a shoe company, my shoe over, my competitors. If that means I need to make my website more AI friendly, gonna have to do that, whether I want to or not, or lose out in that revenue of these AI people. Like, I can't tell you how many times with my wife or something, we'll take a picture of something and be like, hey, can you find me this product? Because maybe I don't want to buy a lot of clothing is sold by a ton of different companies, and depending on the brand, it might be overly expensive. So you can just take a picture and be like, hey, find me the same exact shoe, but maybe it doesn't have this brand name on it. And you can find somebody else selling the same thing from the same supplier that doesn't have an insane markup. That's one thing I think LLMs are really going to help, or those kind of search engines are real crazy, because like these boutique brands that do 10x markups or crazy markups on things, but truly are just like Alibaba or something behind the scenes. Like, it's going to be easier and easier to drive the costs down because you can just find somebody selling the same exact product using the same exact Shopify store, but doesn't have the same markup. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go buy it. Hopefully, they'll keep driving the cost of things down. AI Foundry for Windows is a thing, and the universal platform for local AI development. Foundry Local also runs on Mac and Linux too, though. So Windows just has some specific Windows love that they talked about here. But yeah, I think that I hit the bottom of the list. I don't know, Derek.
Actually, you missed GitHub Copilot chat. So, and all the stuff GitHub Copilot, stuff like the SRE agent. So if you saw the site reliability engineer agent being able to basically monitor your production environments for you and alerting and potentially taking action based on what the issue is. So SRE agents is going to be, I think, a huge time saver for organizations monitoring production and ingesting all that data instead of having to send it off to a third party environment to analyze and escalate instances. This will handle it for you. So, and then my favorite GitHub Copilot GitHub Copilot agent mode. So raise a hand on here. Who all are developers? So if you're a developer, GitHub Copilot agent will be a huge boom for you on developing applications. So I started playing with it the other day. I'll do a quick little overview here of it of what I did. But I got an Azure newsletter I put out, and basically all it does is suck in RSS feeds and pull the data and sort it and stuff. So I started with a simple little prompt, and this is my prompt. And I wanted to create a timer trigger function. And actually, I had changed this. I went to .NET 9 actually, and .NET Aspire. I wanted my function in isolated worker mode, and I kind of gave it an overview of what I wanted it to do, and I just kicked it off. And then the other thing I did is I have a Copilot instruction, so a document within my directory structure that basically gives Copilot hints on how I want this done. So this document can be used on these type of projects for C# languages. Again, I changed that to 9 on me, but architecture overviews of how I wanted to create it, general guidelines for code creation, even told it the directory structure that I wanted to be able to create my projects in. So I can include this in any project I want. Being able to provide other things for it to fit my coding style, and then even provide references saying, here's documents that provide good practices and information on how to create this, and kicked it off and let it run. And then probably about 10 minutes later, it came back with my application at that point. It wasn't perfect. It was probably 85 to 90% there. I had a little cleanup I had to do. It had duplicated some code in the error, and I had a couple of little coding errors I had to fix. But in 10 minutes, it took me probably did something what probably would taken me better part of a day or so to be able to create. So gets me started off in the right directions, and then I can go in and tell it to make changes. I wanted to add database access, so I said, hey, I want to store it in database using Entity Framework, and it went off and created my DB context, my repositories, and entities to actually be able to store these in the SQL Server for me and stuff. So at one point I said, hey, I want to, what would it take to upgrade to .NET 10 with it for this? And it showed me proposed changes, and I could have accepted them, and it would have applied them for me. So GitHub Copilot Chat is going to be, I think, a major step forward for developers on productivity at this point. So,
I got a
and
lot
then
of OCD.
even being able to assign issues from GitHub. Be able to assign a issue from GitHub and assign it to an agent to actually be able to go out and fix or accomplish for you. So at this point, we're looking at you may not be, if you're a manager, you may not have a team of total developers. You may have a mix of developers and agents on your team performing tasks.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a huge announcement where you can basically kick off agent workers, and Copilot instructions is awesome because you can give it your code formatting, the rules that you use at your company, any sort of linter. And then a non-technical person can basically tag Copilot and say, hey, go take a stab at doing this PR or like this issue resolver first.
Yeah. And then I can choose from different models that I use 4.1 now. Talking with some of my teammates, I probably should have been using Claude. They say for GitHub Copilot Chat, Claude has actually produces better code at this point. So I'm sure that will change going forward. But you have different models that you can choose and determine which one's best for you.
I have a little ADD. What's the elephant in your sidebar, Derek?
Here?
Yeah.
Focus SQL.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize their logo was an elephant. Sorry. I do have something else to show too. If you want to look at the question in the chat, Derek, while I pull this up. So as a developer, this is kind of like a brochureware kind of website I created. It's called Astro. It's just basically supposed to be a very low code JavaScript, as little JavaScript as possible to do what you still need to do. But I basically built out a website for myself. I run a podcast called Engineering in the Loop, so EITL.ai. This website was all generated by Copilot. I didn't quite use all the fanciness you did, Derek, but I was just like, hey, give me a homepage that has a link to my blog post, my events, all that, connect with me section. I was actually showing my wife this, and I moved my blog over to here, my podcast, there's some previews. work with me, all that. Like this would have taken a little bit of time. I didn't do any of this. I just said, here's the pieces I want on this page, and it generated me the page, and then I could give it little tweaks, and it would tweak it. Even to the point of my wife was like, you should add an about me section. And I was like, what should be in there? And basically took what she told me, typed it out, and said, okay, here you go. Now there's an about me page on this as well, of like basically developed by her, just telling me what I should put in there. I typed it into Copilot. Now I have a page that's for an about me. I think it's going to greatly reduce the barrier of entry to just get out simple web apps or simple applications of just like, hey, I need something to do a thing. And then, you go to the developers and they're like, it's going on our backlog, but what's the priority and how much money is it going to save? And you're like, well, I'm one person. Well, now either through Copilot on the app itself, we can have people that aren't super great developers or just maybe dabble in it that can build full-fledged applications. You're going to have, I think, people in the Copilot chat in GitHub be able to sign issues or resolve things on their own just by doing that. Maybe a manager or somebody then only has to approve it. Doesn't really need to go into a roadmap. They can just be like, does it fit our standards? Does it do what it needs to do? Cool. It's there. You can even have rules in there to automate it with automated testing, all that sort of fun stuff.
I can't see chat. Yeah. My Teams is locked up. It does this occasionally on me lately with sharing my screen out. So maybe I can't even see your screen. It just totally locked up. So
nice. Let me read the message. So the message is, recently clicked on the record and transcribe. It gives me access to the transcript from that point. Will I have access to the entire transcript? I am working with Copilot on a DIY meeting summary workflow. I think they should do so. When the meeting ends, do they still have access to the transcription, Derek? Do you know that?
Yes, and it actually, I think whoever created the meeting, it actually sends the transcript too.
I think I created the meeting, but when we end the recording, it should still be in there.
Yeah.
But cool.
Okay, thank you so much, fellas. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to get up to speed on a fast, it's a bullet train.
It is. I'm in the weeds of Gen AI day to day, and somebody's like, did you see this new thing Microsoft rolled out or Claude or whoever? I'm like, no.
Don't feel bad, Alex. I work for the company. A lot of times I don't even see some of the stuff. So it's just happening too fast all over the place. So many services, and sometimes you just got to pick the services you want to focus on and try to do your best with the other ones.
For sure. Cool. I'm going to turn off the recording here.
I do need to drop, Alex.